I went to Binghamton University for 2 years, and during that time I made a decent-sized friend group. Most weekends were the same: parties, late-night food, movies in someone's dorm. But this one night in October, changed the way I feel about the woods forever. It was a Friday. Not a party night for us. Just me and 2 close friends, Ryan and Jacob. We didn't want to deal with crowds, so Ryan suggested we hang out at the nature preserve behind the campus, right by the lake. There was a spot deep in the woods, a clearing on the far side of the lake that almost nobody else knew about. Students sometimes went there to smoke or drink, because it was far from the walking trails and even farther from campus security's usual patrols. It was quiet, isolated, and felt totally disconnected from the rest of the world. Which is exactly why this story still scares me. We got there around 10 p.m. The sky was cloudy, and the trees were barely visible silhouettes. Ryan gathered some dry wood, we lit a small fire, and sat around it drinking cheap beers and talking about nothing. It felt like one of those perfect fall nights, cold enough that the fire felt good, but not freezing. The lake behind us was completely still, reflecting little bits of orange from our fire. Time passed quickly. The beers went down faster than they should have. At one point, Jacob was laughing so hard he rolled backward into the leaves, holding his stomach. We were loud. Loud enough that we didn't hear the first branch snap. It was Ryan who stopped laughing first. "Shoo, hold on." We all froze. There it was. The unmistakable sound of leaves crunching. Slow, deliberate. Like someone placing each step carefully. None of us said anything. We all had the same thought. Campus police. We were all under 21, the beers were obvious, and getting caught meant trouble. "We should kill the fire," Jacob whispered. But before we moved, another sound came. Closer. A branch snapped loud. Not a twig. A thick, heavy branch. My stomach dropped. Campus security never went this deep into the wood. Hardly any students even knew about this spot. So who the hell was out there? We quickly threw the remaining bottles into the lake, an instinctive reaction from panic, and pushed the backpack of beers under some leaf. But the footsteps didn't move away. Instead, they circled us. Slowly. We couldn't see anything past the glow of the fire, but whatever or whoever it was, wasn't trying to sneak. It was letting us know it was there. Jacob whispered, "It's like walking a half circle around us." It was true. We would hear crunching on the left. Then silence. Then behind us. Then off to the right. We were surrounded by darkness, completely blind to anything outside the fire's reach. It felt like being watched from every direction at once. For a while, we tried to laugh it off, but the sound kept getting closer. Then, out of nowhere, thud. A large branch landed directly in the center of our fire circle, scattering sparks. Jacob screamed and stumbled backward. I felt my whole body go cold. Someone had thrown that. Someone strong. Ryan grabbed the backpack. "Go. Now." Before we could even stand fully, another branch came flying out of the darkness. And this one hit Jacob across the side of his face. He dropped instantly, grabbing his cheek and yelling. That snapped us into action. We pulled him up and ran. We didn't talk. We didn't look back. We just ran, blind, crashing through the dark woods, following the faint memory of the trail. My chest was tight, my legs burning, lungs on fire. But the terror kept pushing us forward. When we reached the edge of the preserve, the woods thinned out. Campus lights were visible through the trees. We stopped for a moment to catch our breath. But then we heard it. Footsteps. Fast ones. Coming out of the woods toward us. We didn't wait. We sprinted across the grass, across the road, all the way to our dorm building. Jacob was already in his room, pressing ice to his cheek, when Ryan pulled back the blinds to see if anything was outside. And that's when we saw him. A figure, tall, thin, pacing along the tree line. Every time a car drove by, he slipped back into the shadows. Then came out again when the road was quiet. He didn't come closer. Just watched. He stayed there for almost 10 minutes. Then eventually disappeared back into the woods. We talked for hours that night, fueled by adrenaline and leftover fear. In the moment we joked about it, trying to convince ourselves it wasn't as bad as it felt. But the next morning, when we sobered up, when we saw Jacob's bruised cheek, when we walked past the trail entrance and saw how far in we had been, that's when it truly hit us. Someone was out there. Someone strong enough to throw branches with force. Someone who circled us silently for minutes. Someone who followed us back toward campus. And the scariest part? We never saw his face. We never even heard him speak. We stopped going to the preserve at night. And to this day, when I walk by that lake, I still get the feeling that someone is standing just inside the tree line, watching, waiting, hidden in the same darkness that once surrounded us. When I was 22, I got my first job in New York City, but I was still living in Jersey. The commute alone convinced me I needed to move immediately. Rent in the city was insane, until I found a Craigslist ad that looked almost too good to be true. A bedroom in Hell's Kitchen, cheap, furnished, quiet roommate. I should have known cheap rent in Manhattan always comes with something dark attached. I met the so-called landlord the next day. His name was Mark. He looked normal but off. His shirt tucked too tightly, hair flat and oily, voice monotone, like he was reading from a script. But I ignored the red flags. This was New York, weird people were everywhere. He showed me the apartment. Small, old hardwood floors, tiny kitchen, a narrow hallway that creaked with every step. When I asked about the roommate, Mark smiled stiffly. His name is Bren. Very quiet. Stays in his room. You won't even notice him. He knocked on Bren's bedroom door. Bren? New roommate here. Want to say hi. Silence. Mark leaned toward me. He's shy. Maybe he's napping. I shrugged. I didn't need a best friend, I just needed affordable rent. I signed the application. He called me that night and told me I was approved. My dad helped me move in that weekend. During the whole process, carrying boxes, dropping furniture, talking loudly, Bren stayed in his room. Not even a hey. Not a single footstep out the door. But we heard movement in there. Soft thumps. The creak of floorboards. My dad asked, "You sure someone lives in that room?" I laughed it off, but deep down, something already felt wrong. When my dad left, the apartment felt unnaturally quiet. I put on Netflix, ate ramen, tried to relax. That's when I heard a door open. I paused the video. Bren's bedroom door slowly creaked, then shut. I rushed outside to introduce myself, but before I reached the hallway, the front door slammed. I stood there alone, staring at the empty living room. Weird, but I brushed it off. New roommate, new building, new life. I didn't want paranoia ruining everything, That night, I woke up to the sound of the front door opening again. Then footstep. Slow. Heavier than before. Moving down the hallway. Creeping toward my bedroom. Then they stopped. Right outside my door. I stared at the thin strip of light under the doorframe and saw feet. Someone was standing there. Not moving. Just watching my door. My heart hammered so hard I thought he'd hear it. I didn't say anything, didn't move, didn't breathe loudly. After almost a full minute, the feet turned away. I heard the footsteps creak back down the hall and a door close. I barely slept after that. The next day was normal. Quiet. Too quiet. That night, after grabbing toothpaste from the nearby 7-Eleven, I noticed Bren's door was slightly open. A thin line of yellow light slipped into the hallway. Finally, a chance to meet him. I knocked gently. "Hey, Bren? Just saying hi." No answer. I pushed the door open wider. And instantly froze. The room was empty. Completely empty. No bed. No clothes. No personal belongings. No boxes. Just bare floorboards. And a single old wooden chair sitting in the corner facing the door. My stomach flipped. Then dropped. What about the noises? The footsteps? The door opening? The night someone stood outside my room? Who was making all that noise? Because it clearly wasn't Bren. My hands started shaking. I shut the door quietly and backed away. There was only one person to call, Mark. I dialed his number. It rang twice. And at the exact same moment behind me. A phone rang inside my closet. The same ringtone. Perfectly in sync. At first, my brain refused to understand what was happening. But when the ringing inside my closet stopped at the same moment Mark's call went to voicemail, my blood turned cold. He had declined the call. Which meant Mark was inside my closet. I backed out of my room without making a sound, walked straight into the bathroom, locked the door, and called 911. My voice shook the entire time. The police arrived quickly. They searched the apartment while I stayed behind them, gripping my phone like a lifeline. Then one officer called out, "We've got him." Mark was pulled out from under my bed. His eyes were wide, hollow, frantic, nothing like the awkward, soft-spoken man I'd met earlier. The mask had dropped. The police later told me. He wasn't a landlord. He didn't own the apartment. He had broken in weeks ago and never left. There was no Bren. He had probably been living in that empty room long before I arrived. And he had another key to my room. I moved out the next morning. Even now, in every new apartment on the first night, I check the closets. I check under the bed. I check behind the shower curtain. Because I learned something I'll never forget. You're not always living alone, even when you think you are. I was a freshman at the University of Iowa when this happened, barely 1 week into the semester. Campus still felt new to me. I didn't know many people yet, and my roommate was obsessed with one thing only, rushing a fraternity. He'd been talking about it since orientation week. When he found out parties had already started, he insisted I go with him. I wasn't interested in joining a frat, but I figured I needed to socialize, so I agreed. That was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. The frat house we went to wasn't one of the popular ones. In fact, it wasn't even recognized by the university. It was deep in a rough downtown area far away from the campus, a place where even the streetlights looked dead. When we pulled up, I thought we had the wrong place. The house looked abandoned, cracked windows, peeling paint, and a porch that looked like it could collapse if someone sneezed too hard. If it weren't for the loud music and parked cars, we would have driven past it. A short, sweaty guy with a stained white t-shirt answered the door holding a red cup. Without saying anything, he motioned us to follow him inside. The living room was dark except for a few purple LEDs taped to the walls. It smelled like sweat, beer, and something chemical that I couldn't identify. Nearly 50 guys were packed shoulder to shoulder inside, and I counted maybe 2 girls, both looking uncomfortable and nowhere near the party mood my roommate expected. I tried to make conversation with a couple of people, but every single person stared at me way too long before responding. No smiles. No jokes. Just blank eyes and mumbled answers. Something felt wrong. After 20 minutes of uncomfortable small talk, I told my roommate we should leave, but a big group of guys blocked the exit. It felt intentional, though I tried not to overthink it. That's when a heavy guy, built like a fridge, walked up to me with a tiny glass bottle. He grinned and said, "This'll hit harder than that trash beer." His tone wasn't friendly. It felt expectant. Not wanting to be rude, I forced a laugh and took a sip. It tasted way stronger than anything I'd had before. When I tried to hand it back, he raised his eyebrows. "Finish it." His eyes didn't blink. He didn't look away from mine. I should have trusted my instincts, but I drank it. Within a minute, everything started spinning. My vision turned darker at the corners, like someone pulling curtains around me. My hearing dulled. The voices around me warped into echoes. I tried to tell my roommate I wasn't feeling right, but the words came out broken. The floor tilted. The lights blurred. And then I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the living room anymore. I was lying on a bed in a dark, windowless room. No lights were on, yet I could faintly hear the muffled party music somewhere outside the door. My head wasn't just hurting, it felt wrong, like I'd been underwater for hours. My thoughts wouldn't stay straight. My tongue was numb. My hands shook. It took a while before my eyes adjusted, and when they did, I saw a desk, a closet door, and the bed I was on. I sat up slowly. That's when I heard it. The sound of plastic crinkling. Very soft. Very slow. Coming from inside the closet. Like someone had stepped on a plastic bag by accident. I froze. I whispered, "Hello?" Silence. Then I heard breathing. Heavy. Slow. Controlled. Like someone was trying not to be heard. My heart was pounding so loud it felt like the only sound in the room. I didn't think. I didn't question anything. I just threw myself toward the door, nearly tripping, and fumbled with the lock until it opened. The hallway light hit me hard, way too bright after that pitch-black room. No one in the hallway even looked at me. I pushed through the crowd until I finally found my roommate. I grabbed his arm harder than I meant to. "We're leaving. Right now." He didn't argue. He saw my face and knew something was wrong. When we got in the car, I told him everything. He asked if something had happened to me. If someone had touched me. I checked, my clothes were the same, nothing hurt. but I still felt sick, dizzy, and terrified. The next day, when my head finally cleared up, I remembered something that still makes my stomach drop. Right before I ran out of the room, when I opened the door, the light from the hallway briefly spilled into the closet area, and I realized I had seen something inside. A pair of bare feet behind the closet door. Pale, motionless. Someone was standing there, watching me while I was unconscious. If that plastic bag hadn't made a sound, if I hadn't woken up at that exact moment, I don't want to think about what would have happened. My roommate never rushed any fraternity after that, and I never drank anything at a party unless I opened it myself. Because someone at that frat party had plans for me, and I got away only because something interrupted them.